if there's no formal documents out there, it's time to have those conversations with your parents. And when emotions start running high and, you got to return to always kind of that core question is, what is best for our mom? What is best for our dad? It's not about you or your sister's wishes or your brother's wishes. It comes down to what is best for mom, dad, your grandparent, or in my case, what is best for my husband. Find common ground and compromise. So, identify like what your shared goals are. Welcome to Aging in Style with Lori Williams, the podcast all about finding the silver lining no matter what life throws your way. I'm Lori Williams, an award-winning senior living expert, author, educator, and caregiver to my husband, Mark. Join me as I share insights, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate the world of senior housing, discover ways to pay for care, advocate for your loved ones, and most importantly, learn how to thrive, not just survive, as you age. Hi, welcome to Aging in Style. I'm so glad you have tuned in today. We are talking about how to successfully navigate your parents' aging years. And this is so important to talk about because I own a senior placement service and have worked with seniors for over 18 years and their adult children, because typically it is their adult child who calls me most of the time in crisis or in denial about what's going on with their parents. And it just leads to so many issues when families do not have a plan or they have never talked about what it's going to be like as mom and dad get older, what their wishes are, what their financial situation is like, all of those things. And it just can lead to such an emotional and difficult, stressful time. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and why it is so important to have these conversations, these open conversations, understand your parents' wishes, and plan for their future, and how we can get everyone on the same page. So first, we're going to talk about the importance of having open conversations. And it is crucial to have these conversations early. In the event that maybe there's dementia down the road and your mom or dad, is not able to tell you what their wishes are, or they're in an accident or have a stroke or something happens where they cannot convey to you what their wishes are. I will say, for myself, I have already done, planning and have told my children, what's what, and I think it's really important. And I probably would never have had these conversations so early on had, things not happened the way they have happened in my life. And also working with seniors and talking to people every single day and hearing some horror stories. So for myself, if you listen to the podcast, I am the caregiver for my husband. My son helps me as well. My husband had 4 strokes a little over 2 years ago. And so I've had to really think about, if something, God forbid, were to happen to me, who's going to take care of my husband financially? How's he going to be taken care of? All these types of things, because we are relatively young. I am only 60. My husband is 64. Our kids, we had kids later in life, so our kids are 28 and 22, and the youngest is still in college. So it was really important to me to make some decisions and have things done legally. So I've talked to my kids. They know that I have a trust in place. They know that my brother, their uncle, is the executor of it. If they were to have questions, I have, life insurance that my husband would be taken care of if, God forbid, I went first. So, these are not like easy things to, have to think about and talk about, but I don't ever want to leave anyone in a position where they're trying to figure out how to financially care for my husband or care for me. I want to be the one in control and not be the burden to somebody or causing stress, if that makes sense. So anyhow, so having those conversations, they're hard to have with our aging parents. And so granted, I'm on the other side of it. I'm the one who's being proactive in doing all of this, but it is hard to talk about these super sensitive topics like your parents, about their health. Maybe they don't want to share things with you about health, about their finances, or what their future plans could be. So I have some tips for sort of breaking the ice with them and making these decisions, these conversations just go a little smoother and a little more naturally. So super important is to choose the right time and setting. If you're at a football game or something, maybe not the best time. Everyone's a little distracted, things going on to say, hey, Dad, how much money do you have? I mean, that would not be a good time. And so pick a relaxed, private environment where they feel comfortable. Like I said, avoid high stress type of situation. You could either maybe you're having coffee together, just kind of casual conversation, bring things up. Use open-ended questions. So instead of just diving straight into a real serious topic like, do you want to be buried or cremated? That might freak someone out. So start kind of with the more general conversations like, have you thought about what your future is going to look like, as you get older? How have you been feeling lately? Anything on your mind? Anything to talk about? And what do you think about your living situation? Do you feel safe and comfortable? Are things okay at home? Are there any repairs that need to be made to your house? Anything, just kind of bring up conversation. Can also work well to share personal stories. So you could say, my friend had this conversation with her parents and they were talking about how they would want, what their final wishes would be. And my friend was surprised that her parents wanted to be cremated. Or, hey, my friend's parents just downsized. They got tired of taking care of their home. And when they did the math on it, they realized it made more sense for them to move to a senior apartment, and they're super happy there. So have you ever thought about something like that? Just kind of, opening that conversation up. If they get, a little antsy or kind of looking a little suspiciously at you, just back off. This is just kind of opening those conversations. Express concern, but not like you're trying to control them and control their life and their situation. So kind of phrase things in a way that is showing that you care about them, but you're not just trying to take over. So you could say something like, hey, I want to just make sure we have a plan in place so we're not caught off guard. Or you've always taken such good care of me. I want to be able to do the same for you in your, later years. Instead of, you don't want to come in and be like, okay, we need to make a plan because, I don't think you're safe here. So we need to make a plan for you to go to assisted living. That is an example of no, do not do that. Everyone is going to be turned off, and that is not going to win you any friends. So don't do that. Ease into these difficult topics. So just start small before discussing the heavier subjects like finances or health decisions. Maybe ask about their wishes sort of in general terms, like, hey, what was it like for you when your parents got older? What do you think worked well with them? And, maybe in my case, my grandmother had dementia. And I mean, I know the answers to that, but if, say, your grandmother had dementia and your mom took care of her, you might want to say, hey, kind of, how did you feel about that as grandma got older? And, emotionally, how was that taking care of her, being a caregiver? What did you do finding help for her? Just kind of bring them back to how they helped their parents so that they know they helped their parent out of love. You're just trying to help them out of love and make sure that they're taken care of. Involve them in the decisions. Let them be a part of the planning process instead of they're feeling that they're being told what they have to do. So, maybe if you're thinking mom's a widow, perhaps she's, let's say, 85, and staying home is getting a little difficult for her. Maybe she no longer drives. There's some mobility issues. So maybe you bring those things up and that you do have some concerns. And then you ask her, would you like to explore some different options together? And, maybe how do you feel, Mom? How do you feel about talking to someone who specializes in this, in assisted living and senior housing, and they can tell you all about it? You're not going to come in guns blazing like, we're moving you to assisted living. So we're going to go look at this one. This is the one you're moving into, or I went and picked it out. No, let's not do that. I mean, there is a time and place where perhaps like if your mom or dad had advanced dementia, that really bringing them into the decision-making process would not make any sense. And you would have to pick that out for them. But if we're talking independent living, assisted living, make them a part of it. Also, use humor when appropriate, lighten the mood if possible. If things are getting kind of tense, just try to lighten it up with a joke or something, maybe something that's funny in your family. Just, think about something that happened in the past, that's something that you always laughed about. I mean, for me, maybe it'd be like, remember when Dad would make up all his silly rhymes and, he had a rhyme for everything and, just something like that. Just try to bring it to lighten the mood. And I think most important, be patient and give them time. I mean, some conversations are going to take multiple attempts. If they resist and you see them kind of like tense up or look away from you, just back off and then try again later. And then show them that you're willing to listen, that you don't have this agenda that you're trying to push. You just are trying to make sure that everyone is on the same page should something happen, so that you are taking care of them in the way that, that they would have wanted. Next up, being on the same page with family. That is super important because you need to, if there's multiple siblings, everyone's going to have a different idea. And, sometimes we run into conflicts and misunderstandings. So it's really, really important that everyone's on the same page. So when navigating differing opinions within families, it can make making a decision hard. So if, say, for example, your mom is absolutely fine staying home, and you are like, I can see she can't even get dressed on her own. This is, an accident waiting to happen here that can make it very difficult. So you have to find ways to get together on this and have these open conversations, because where it's coming from, quite honestly, is sometimes people are in denial because it's very hard to see your mom or dad, to see them decline, and you don't want to realize how bad it is. And so some people just, they just can't see it. They just want to remain in denial over it. And so maybe this other sibling is seeing clearly that, we have a problem. So the big thing is it's communication, and establishing this open communication. Set some ground rules for the discussion. Everyone stay respectful, no interrupting. Everyone has their chance to say their piece, what they're seeing. Ensure that everyone is heard, including the one who's needing help, your mom or dad. Again, unless, of course, they aren't able to contribute to the conversation due to advanced dementia or, something else going on. Use I statements instead of you statements to reduce defensiveness. Oh my goodness, that's a big one. It's always so much in your approach and your words and your tone and how you say things. So just really be cognizant of that. Hold some regular family meetings. So schedule structured meetings to talk about your concerns and, update each other on what you found out and coming together to make a plan, and allow each person to express their perspective and ideas. And, I know a lot of people are spread out. So if you're in Texas and you have a sibling in California and another one in Idaho, there's Zoom. So have a Zoom meeting. And I think it's good to see each other, see your faces, not just hear voices talking like on a conference call. I think it's good to see expressions because, your sister may be saying one thing and she's over there rolling her eyes. So, there's so many things that are unsaid in facial expressions. And goodness, I know I am one of these people that I cannot hide anything on my face. So I think that's important. So truly where everyone is standing. Take notes and document agreements to prevent misunderstandings later on. It's important to define roles and responsibilities. So if there are multiple siblings, make it very clear who is taking care of what. So say your brother is good with money and finances, so he's handling the financial piece of it. and your sister is really good with, maybe she's a nurse, so she's a great one to kind of take over the medical decision part and know, like, what's going on health-wise with your parents. So kind of, break it up in that way if you can. And then rotate tasks if possible to prevent like a caregiver burnout. So if you're taking care, don't dump it all on one family member. And I see this so often where one family member is the one doing everything. They're getting the brunt of it, taking care of mom. And it could be because they are closest geographically to mom and everyone else is off living their lives. And, they're not there to see how difficult it is to be a caregiver. And I am just going to tell you right now, as a caregiver myself, it is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. So if you have one sibling who is, like in the trenches every day caring for mom or dad, you need to respect them, to call them, to offer some assistance, whether it's helping to hire someone to care, to be a caregiver, or to, come in and stay a long weekend and give that sibling a break. So it's really, really important to not put everything on one sibling. And consider each person's strengths and availability when you're assigning different roles. Like I said before, so if your brother's good with money, make him the financial guy. If say sister's good with all the legal aspect of stuff, have her talk to the elder law attorney and, get wills and power of attorney and all that stuff taken care of. Seek professional guidance. Like you definitely need, an elder law attorney, an attorney if they have not put together a will or a trust, get all their stuff in order. You definitely would want to bring someone in for that. If family is not getting along, there are mediators out there. Maybe it's time to bring in a family mediator to facilitate these really difficult conversations and bring everybody onto the same page. And you need to keep your loved one's wishes at the center of everything. If they don't have advance directives or wills or power of attorneys, you need to work together to get all of that. If there's no formal documents out there, it's time to have those conversations with your parents. And when emotions start running high and, you got to return to always that core question is, what is best for our mom? What is best for our dad? It's not about you or your sister's wishes or your brother's wishes. It comes down to what is best for mom, dad, your grandparent, or in my case, what is best for my husband. Find common ground and compromise. So, identify like what your shared goals are. The goal is we want to keep mom safe. Perhaps she has been falling and she's no longer safe in her home. We need to bring in a caregiver. We need to make the home safe while we are determining where we're going to move her because it is time for assisted living. So, that's your common shared goal, to do that. And then address conflicts constructively because, emotions can escalate. Things can, it is emotional because we're talking about our parents and, your brother may feel strongly. So just as strongly as you feel, he may feel strongly that we are not moving mom from her home. She is staying in this home and that's what's going to happen. And you're on the other side just feeling as strongly that assisted living is where mom needs to go to make sure she is getting all of her needs met and she is safe. So sometimes when that happens, it's time to take a break and come back to the discussion later on. I will tell you that things surface from childhood all the time. The old, you were mom's favorite, that comes up in these conversations. Or like, remember when I was in third grade and, this happened, blah, blah, blah. These things that you think, say you're 65 years old, but they're coming up when you're having these emotional conversations and having to make these decisions for your parents. So just focus on the facts. What's best for mom or dad? That's the core of this. And let's not focus on these personal grievances from 50 years ago. If one member of the family is just super resistant, just acknowledge their concerns and explore solutions together. So, I get it. Say brother, like in the example, the brother is adamant mom needs to stay home. Okay, if that is, you absolutely want mom to stay home, what are we going to do to make her safe? So we're going to bring a caregiver in. Is she the point where she needs a 24/7 caregiver? Okay, that's going to cost a lot of money. And when you put pen to paper and see how much that's going to cost, brother may at that point say, okay, you're right. Assisted living is what we need to do. So it's just putting everything out there, and everyone wants to be heard. They want to be acknowledged and heard, and that their concerns are being considered. If it gets to the point that nobody is on the same, the same playing field, everyone's like scattered, then it's time to bring in a mediator to help with these things. Okay, next part of this is understanding their wishes and estate planning. So most people, the majority of people, have not done this. And I just pulled this up according to caring.com. About 32% of Americans have a will, according to a 2024 survey by caring.com. So most people don't have a will. They do not have a power of attorney. They have not thought about these things. So here is the way I have heard it. It is a gift to leave your family with everything done, your wishes known, everything, planned out, kind of wrapped up with a red ribbon around it. And that, for me, that is so important. That is what I want to leave my family. We have done a podcast on the binder, and the binder is so important. It is something that I'm actually working on myself for my family, making sure I have everything in the binder. And that would include, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, all these things that, you need when you're settling someone's estate. And as well as, of course, having, if they have a will, if they have a trust, all these things, you're not going to avoid probate. Even with the trust, you have to go through probate, but it's not as long and arduous of a process as like if you don't have a will at all, but, it does help go through probate. But it's so important to have these things and talk to an elder law attorney or an attorney at all, just to have this information together. So can't stress enough how important it is to have all documents in place, have wills done, all of that. And again, go listen to the binder episode. And we are still working on a product for you where you can download and have your own binder, what the information that you'll need. That is still in progress. Next part that I think is important is preparing for the unexpected. And quite honestly, this is probably one of the most important things you can prepare for. So in my line of work, we talk to so many people who are in crisis, and the majority are not prepared for the crisis. So what happens if the worst happens and you get the call in the middle of the night that your mom's been taken to the hospital, she had a stroke, she cannot talk? Do you know anything about her financial situation? Do you know what her wishes are? So, this is why it's so important to have these conversations and have the plans in place. Another example, and why it's important to have a backup plan. Have a plan A, plan B, a plan C. Mom wants to stay in her home. She's 90. She's beginning to decline. She falls and breaks a hip. Okay, what's your plan? She's at the hospital. She's had surgery. She next goes to rehab. She can't come home and take care of herself anymore. She's having a lot of issues with getting around. So have you looked at assisted living? Do you know about home health? Do you know these things? What are her plans? How can she pay for it? That's having all your plans in place, your plan A, your plan B, your plan C. So, it's very important that you know what's going to happen. An example personally, which is not an easy thing for me, but I do have plans not written down, but in my head if something were to happen with my husband. And as I said, he is severely disabled. He cannot stay by himself. But God forbid if he were to fall and break something, and then he would not be able to transfer. He's a big guy. I couldn't transfer him on my own. So I do have plans in place for if he were to need at some point assisted living. I do have plans if he were to need a higher level of care. So they're in my head. I mean, it's not anything I have ready to go because my goal is that I am able to take care of him at home as long as possible, along with my son's help and a caregiver that we hire. So I get it. I mean, even just saying that out loud, it feels awful to have to think about that, go down that road at some point for my husband. But, we have to be realistic. There has to be plans because I know I couldn't take care of my husband if he could not transfer on his own. I can't pick him up. That's just can't happen. So that's why it's so important to have already researched and have talked to someone like myself so that you know what's available out there, how you pay for it. It makes me so sad when someone comes to me and they're like, I have to find an assisted living now for my mom. I don't even understand what assisted living is. I don't know how much it costs. I'm thinking I can pay for it with Medicare, which is no. That's one of our myth busters we did on our assisted living podcast last week. So, it's just so important to have your plans in place. So in conclusion, I hope this has helped you realize how important it is to have a plan and have everyone on board and to think about these things when it comes to navigating your parents' aging years and successfully being able to do that without a lot of stress and a lot of anguish and, to be able to do it effectively. So again, just kind of rehashing it, just main thing is have open conversations. So important. All the tips that I gave you on that, being on the same page with your family members so that everyone knows what we're doing, that nobody feels left out and unheard, understanding your parents' wishes and making sure that there's some estate planning that has been done and preparing for the unexpected. Know what is out there, for independent living, assisted living, how you pay for it, knowing what your parents' financial information is like, what they can afford, and being able to jump in and not be just kind of like frozen and, having no clue where to even begin. So I hope that helps. Please have these conversations sooner rather than later. Be sure to go back and listen to the podcast, especially the one on the binder. That one gives you a lot of great information on getting things together so that, there are no surprises and you have all your information at your fingertips for your parents. And then I suggest you do one for yourself too, so that your family has no surprises, should something happen to you, God forbid. Please share this podcast with your friends and family. On my website, which is loriwilliams-seniorservices.com, you can find all of our podcast episodes. You can learn more about placement services, and you can see my book, which is Surrounded by Love, which is my family story about my husband's stroke. So lots of resources and information there. So please do check it out. And thank you all for listening. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to my podcast and give me a review. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.